Today, I am chatting with the beautiful Chelsea Yamase, aka Chelsea Kauai. She is one of the biggest travel creators in the world with an audience of over 1 million online, creating content about mindfulness, adventure, and travel. Freediver, acro yoga pro, explorer, like total embodiment of what it means to live fully in every way.
High belief and high patience, two critical factors for me in achieving anything that I wanted to do. I feel very, very privileged to basically have lived my craziest dream life. I felt like anything that I could dream up, I could do, try to reflect on and get really clear in your own values as a human, because being online is going to test all of those values and people are going to poke at you.
It's really scary when you start to lose interest in what you're doing for work because it feels like a part of you is also dying.
And there's also this weirdness and terror that from the outside, everyone's like, oh my God, you're so successful and you're so great. And I'm like, I kind of feel like I have no idea what I'm doing at this point. And I really want to just burn the whole thing to the ground.
Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Wealthy. Today, I am chatting with the beautiful Chelsea Yamase, aka Chelsea Kauai. She is one of the biggest travel creators in the world with an audience of over 1 million online, creating content about mindfulness, adventure, and travel. She's the creator of the Notes to Mindfulness Journal and the Soul Track app. Freediver, acro yoga pro, explorer, like really just, I feel like the total... You're like, yeah, that's me. Total embodiment of what it means to live fully in every way. She also notably does not do that many podcast interviews. So, Chelsea, I'm beyond honored to have you here today.
Oh, Christina, I'm so happy we could make this happen. I think we have both really energetically committed to making this podcast happen. I just want you guys to know that.
We've literally rescheduled twice and just spent the last 30 minutes having tech issues because she's in Bali. So,
Time zone, all the things.
that's why she's in beautiful natural light and I'm in the pitch black right now.
But excited to be here with you, and I am excited to have girl chats and talk about all of the things. Yeah, like you said, I don't do many podcasts. I really only do the ones that I genuinely feel super excited about, like whatever the magic of the conversation is going to be. So I'm happy to be here with you.
Yay. No, I'm honored. And I feel like this conversation is going to be so in alignment because we've talked a little bit about this, but I feel like in the last few years, we both have been on similar journeys of like feeling unaligned with what used to bring us so much fulfillment and then navigating like that void of like, why do I feel that way? What's next? And then going on this discovery process of what's next. And I feel like collectively, it feels like a lot of people are going through that. So this is going to be, I think, a really helpful conversation for a lot of people to hear that you've been through that and find grace for their own journey. So I want to spend a lot of the conversation talking about that. But first, for people that are new to you or your audience listening that wants like a little bit of background on you, how did you start as a travel creator? And I'm sure this feels like a literal lifetime ago for you at this point.
Yes, so I have been creating full time for more than a decade now, and that feels crazy, absolutely crazy to say. At the time, I was, in my 20s finishing college, social media was really in its nascent baby phase, although we didn't know it at the time. I distinctly remember going, oh, this social media thing, it might, I don't know, maybe it'll stick around for another year or so. Maybe I'll give it a try, was my thing. I had been offered some collaborations just through being in Hawaii, living a beautiful life. It was super organic. There was no element of like, oh, I'm chasing this lifestyle or I want to be in the spotlight or just anything like that. I was surfing, I was free diving, I was hiking, and a few little brands, local brands started to see that and they're like, hey, could we send you this thing? Could we send you this thing? And from there, that tiny little seed really just expanded. First, it was local businesses on my island. Then it turned into the whole state. Then it turned into the US. And then it turned into, hey, we have a travel campaign going to the Maldives. Can you come there? And, if people are new to me, what I would want them to know or what feels important is that this was such a slow burn, slow journey. There was no like, this went viral and my life changed overnight. I was working a regular job in a spa for the first 3 years of doing, any type of creating. And I would go out after work and go camping and take photos and then come back to work and fold towels. People started to recognize me in the spa. They're like, wait, aren't you that girl that does all the cool adventure stuff, and I'm like folding the towel, cleaning the shaving cream off of the counter, and like, yeah,
You're like,
yeah. And
wow,
they're
this
like,
social media thing's real.
so yeah, it was a slow burn for me, but it really started from all of those passions that are just still a part of me and a part of my life and going out and doing them. And here we are 10 years later.
I feel like that's so important for people to hear because they want the like overnight success, especially nowadays. It's like the quick hit, like, how do I grow as quickly as possible within a year? But realizing that it really is something that takes time and also something that compounds as well. You know, like the more consistent you are with things, the faster the kind of like opportunities and the synchronicities do come. But it does take that consistency with it.
The consistency and I think the genuine passion for whatever the thing is, because like we've both pivoted over the years. I went from very much in the outdoor space, that was how people knew me initially, to then having this sort of awakening journey of mindfulness and curiosity around spirituality and bringing more of that part of myself on online. And so it's kind of this ever evolving train that I always wanted to feel really real to what's happening in my life.
And I feel like it's so difficult when I feel like we are both not the type of people that can turn on like work mode. You know, like a doctor, an attorney that's like, okay, it's time for work now. We're people that where it has to align. Like who I am in my business, quote unquote, is who I am in real life. So it's really scary, I feel like, when you start to lose interest in what you're doing for work because it feels like a part of you is also dying.
I could not resonate with that more. Yeah, it's like when your work is your identity and is your life. And I don't mean that in a bad way, but they're so merged when you are a creator, when you're doing things online, that I feel I'm going through an identity crisis right now because when you lose part of that and you're like, wait, what is happening right now? Yeah, it's been a really interesting journey the last few years of trying to navigate what is work, who is Chelsea without social media. I think there's a interesting 10-year cycle that happens with things where you reach a certain plateau or maybe level of maturity with something and start to wonder what the next iteration of that thing might be.
Totally. So give people a little bit of context for people that are new to you, like the height of your kind of career as a travel creator, like what experiences you were having, what brands you were working with, sort of before maybe that voice started in the back of your head.
Yeah, so it has been a wild ride, but I feel very, very privileged to basically have lived my craziest dream life. Like literally craziest dream life. I don't know. I know how I got here, but I also don't know how I got here. So I work with some of the largest brands in the world, everything from American Express to Google, Four Seasons, The North Face, DJI, Canon cameras, Hyundai cars. Like I've worked with almost all of my dream brands. I've done single contracts that were upwards of, $300,000 for one thing for like a day of work. And I was like, this is insane. So just from a financial perspective, from a brand perspective, and then I think really for me, what the biggest draw was or biggest success felt like was just the experiences I've been able to have going on incredible safaris, going to every corner of the globe to free dive, to summit mountains, to go pack rafting with friends, to horseback ride in Patagonia. Like any dream that I have had, I have been able to materialize into the 3D world, into real life. I felt like anything that I could dream up, I could do. And it just was like, yeah, it's been this period of my life where everything felt possible. And it's a really beautiful, really eye-opening, really humbling, addictive feeling to open your emails every day and not know what's gonna be thrown your way. So yeah, I'd say at the height of it, that was, the last 5 years was just traveling with friends, creating content, making money, understanding how business works and investing in companies. And it's just like, it's just grown and grown and grown to not only being a creative, but also being a business owner, an investor, an angel investor in other businesses, and really having to, yeah, take myself seriously in that.
And your world just got so big because of your courage, you know? And I'm curious what your advice would be for people that feel like they are maybe stuck in a job or a town or a situation that isn't aligned with their soul and they want to live a life that is more full, but everybody around them is kind of keeping them trapped in that mentality. Like, what do you think it was about your mindset, maybe that you've always had your entire life, that really allowed you to expand and live in this way?
I would say if I could give advice to anyone that's, yeah, feeling that constriction, that feeling of being stuck, I really get it because I grew up on a tiny, tiny island that there wasn't anyone that I really looked up to in entrepreneurship or in business so much. It just wasn't like a common language that people spoke. I think I would say, like everything about finding alignment, the only way I've been able to do it is listen to that, I don't know, that spark, that curiosity. And I try to believe that if that spark of curiosity is in me, it is possible for me to create that thing in the world. It just becomes a matter of, can I do something today? Not that that's the full vision, but that's 1%, 2%, whatever it is, towards that more aligned life. So what I would do is, like I said in the beginning, I'm a really practical person. I think there's a lot of people that like throw their whole life away and they're like, I just want to be a creator. And that was not me. I was like,
That's good for people to hear.
yeah, and I applaud people that do that as well. And that's just for me. I also crave a level of safety and certainty, and I think there's nothing wrong with that as well. So high belief and high patience were two critical factors for me in achieving anything that I wanted to do in life. So high belief that it could happen, patience and willingness to take the small steps. And I think people really underestimate what you can do in, say, a year, 2 years. It's really easy to get caught up in the like, oh, I haven't seen progress today or in this month or whatever. If you really like extend out that, if you're willing to sit with it and extend out that time frame of the uncertainty, it's really cool what you can do. And it applies to so many things. Like free diving, as you know, I'm a free diver. I was actually very bad at free diving, like awful, like really bad. I would throw up every time. Like it wasn't a good situation.
That makes me happy because I want to learn free diving and I feel like I will also be bad.
Yeah, and I had ear issues. There's so many things, and it's a story I love to reiterate to people because you see me at the end of that journey with these like beautiful photos, swimming with whale sharks, swimming with humpback whales, like going cave diving, and people are like, "Oh my God, you're so elegant." And I'm like, "No, you guys, I've just done this for like a decade." There were so many moments like that, but it just takes some time. And if I feel excitement about the thing, I'm someone that has like so much enthusiasm and drive and patience to keep going towards the thing.
Totally. People quit too early, like right before the breakthrough moment happens. Because I feel like it's sort of oftentimes like working out or trying to lose weight, where it's like you don't notice anything in your body. And then one morning you wake up and you're like, whoa, and it just hits you. And it's the same thing with any goal where it's like over time, there's going to be little dips along the way. But if you zoom out from the bar graph, it is trending upwards. And I love what you said too about like understanding that those little intuitive nudges that you get mean that, depending on your perspective with spirituality and, how the universe operates, that means that there is some version of you out there that already has that thing. You wouldn't have that inside of you if there wasn't a version of you that didn't have it. And I feel like I've only recently in my kind of awakening journey really like on an embodied level felt that. But I'm wondering for you, when you have those nudges and you're like, okay, that's a cue from my higher self, are there things that you do to try to tap into her to receive more downloads from that kind of like higher frequency?
Yeah. So I am a big fan of having a morning practice. I know some people have an evening practice. I love a morning practice. That is when I feel like I receive messages from God. That's the only way I can put it. For me, it requires being really quiet. And it's amazing how much comes through with just if I take 10 minutes to sit quietly. And I don't even want to call it meditation, but basically, I sit quietly for 10 minutes without distractions and just let things arise. A quiet morning practice, and then I journal a lot. I think people have different ways that the world speaks to them. And I find so much clarity about my own process, about my own thoughts. It's almost like I have to like talk to myself or filter it through that thing. And then I'll realize that there's some message, that there's a nudge, or even just things that I want to self reflect on and go, oh, you know what? I don't think that's part of the Chelsea that I would like to become. That's not a thought process. That's not an action that I want to embody. And somehow having it in writing, it allows me to have this tangible way of evolving and tracking my growth that feels a bit more, I don't know, substantial to me.
Yeah, there's some quote. I don't know who said this, but it was like an unexamined life is not worth living, which I feel like is a very harsh thing to say, not worth living. But it is true. It's like you do need to realize that a lot of your thoughts and emotions are not you. Like you need to separate yourself from them and really examine where they're coming from and realize that you do have the power to create the reality that you experience. And a lot of that growth is done by turning inward and being mindful. So, speaking of turning inward, I'm wondering at what point in your, let's say, like peak of travel creator life, did you start having nudges that maybe you were feeling unaligned with what you were doing? And how did that manifest for you?
Yeah, I don't know that alignment is ever something that we ever fully like. I'm locked in, I'm aligned, I'm always here. For me, it's alignment is more of almost this sway or this rope. It's a North Star, but I'm always, oh, I'm correcting. Okay, I'm correcting here. So I would say early in my career, I had quite a few moments. I don't even know if I call them nudges, more like little like a slap to the face of realizing some things weren't aligned. And a lot of that came through a feeling of sometimes shame. Like I'd be like posting about something or for a brand and realize like I felt quite embarrassed and that I would hope that my friends didn't see it or my parents, whatever. Or there was just this internal feeling of shame. And I go, okay, like what is that? And I don't really want that to be the emotion and the emotional texture of me, my presence online. So in the beginning, there was a lot of those learnings. And I think that is inevitable for anyone starting to put themselves out there and to live a public life. Sometimes you say something and you realize, oh, I was unskilled in the way that I presented that, or it wasn't really what I meant, or I agreed to do something perhaps for the wrong, not an aligned reason. So I'm happy that I learned a lot of those lessons really early in my career and really made a pact with myself and like an agreement with myself to just try my utmost to live within my values. And I actually created my own little values framework of like, what does that look like for me?
Yeah, talk more about that. I feel like that would be really helpful for people that are trying to find like guardrails for their choices.
So I looked at things like, what do I feel is my ethical responsibility to speak up on certain topics? What are topics that feel authentic for me to advocate for? Because there's going to be a lot of noise, a lot of people that would like me to say certain things and would like me to agree with what they're saying. But let me first be clear on my field and let me first understand where I'm coming from and what I want to stand for and who I am. It's an evolving process as well. So, one would be, yeah, to try to reflect on and get really clear in your own values as a human, because being online is going to test all of those values and people are going to poke at you and they're going to ask you why you think what you do and why you're being the way you are. And the more grounded I am in who I am, the easier it is to have those conversations with love and to not feel so pulled to be someone else and someone that people want me to be. I think that would be the biggest one. There's so many, but that would be the biggest one, I would say.
Yeah, shutting off the outside noise is huge. It's really difficult, because everybody has these societal expectations and family expectations and religious expectations, whatever it is. And then add on top of that, like having an audience too. I can imagine, like, as you're feeling, like, was it more than feeling disconnected in terms of brand partnerships? Was it a disconnection with the way you were working or what you were working on? Obviously, you're forever passionate about travel, so it probably wasn't about that, more of like the way you were working?
Yeah, I think the disconnect, so the early disconnect was I was like, I don't know who I am fully, and I'm trying to figure out. And that was like an early part of my journey that I needed to go through. and figure out and being solid in myself as a woman. And the more recent disconnect that I felt where I've been like, wow, I sense that I'm in this liminal phase of I don't have a firm like direction or grasp or purpose that I felt the last few years. And I think this one is instead of an external one, this is more of an internal shift where I go, huh, I don't internally feel aligned with the way that I've been traveling or doing things. The things that I'm talking about are maybe not what I'm talking to my friends about. That shift has been a lot slower of it's not something simple like, oh, actually I'm promoting a brand I don't like. I'm not going to do that anymore. It's not that. It's this internal sense
It's the
of
aching soul disconnection where you're like,
yeah.
it's yeah.
I know that it's a privilege to make it this far in one's career to get to a point where you go, "Oh, I've been very successful doing this thing exactly the way I've been doing it in a way that felt really aligned to me for a long time." And there's also this, for me, this weirdness and terror that from the outside, everyone's like, "Oh my God, you're so successful and you're so great." And I'm like, I kind of feel like I have no idea what I'm doing at this point. And I really want to just burn the whole thing to the ground or throw it out the window. And I think this is what you and I connected on because
Yes.
we were both like, seems like we're going through the same thing.
Yeah, seems like we kind of just want to light everything on fire. Interesting.
Yeah, yeah.
Has your awakening journey lined up with this? Because that's what I sort of found with mine is the more I kind of went down the spiritual path and the more connected I started to feel with a larger purpose, the more I realized that a lot of my work before very much came from a place of ego. And so when I had my kind of like quote unquote spiritual awakening, which for me, by the way, happened within the span of like 4 months, it was literally the most disorienting, I could not function thing in the world. And I was like, that's why I had that burn it down feeling because it just was so clear to me how much I was operating off of a need for external validation.
Mm.
And I don't know if that at all resonates, but
Oh, well, I feel like I want to interview you. I have so many questions. But no, I would actually say mine was a bit different because I think my journey into mindfulness and spirituality actually started about 8 years ago or so. And so there's always, yeah, there's always been that. I think mine, to be honest, I don't know where mine comes from, and I would be inventing answers if I were to say I had one. I think part of it is perhaps for me, age, and I think just phases, I call it phases of life. I'm 36 now, and I think just the way that I move through life now is remarkably different than the way I did 10 years ago. So I think just by virtue of that, less maybe on a spiritual sense, but just on a womanhood sense, on a what I want to spend my time on, how much my family means to me, realizations around that I don't actually want to be stressed and working super hard anymore. Yeah, my dad and I actually really connected over this, which is kind of strange. He's going through retirement and his whole life has been as a fisherman. And he just recently opened up to me like he's such a well-respected fisherman on the island. And he's really struggling with that. His body's tired and he's almost 70 now and stepping out of this role that he has been known for and celebrated for and loved so deeply for decades and decades. And I was like, wow, Dad, I actually really resonate because I feel like I'm going through a mini version of that, of having this thing that I worked so hard for and felt really good and really celebrated in, and to not fully want it anymore in the same way or not have the same like fire for it feels really scary and strange. I think it would be easy for me to say, oh, it's the algorithm changed or this or that. And I'm sure, yes, I can be the first one to be like, yeah, I feel really embarrassed when my posts don't do as well as they used to, and it's inherently demotivating for me. But I think that would be too simple of an answer to just blame it on the algorithm or something, because I think if I had the same, I don't know, fire, I think I would find a way to like post every day, for example, you know?
You'd make it work. Yeah. I want to ask you, I wrote down a question that was like, what's next? But to be honest, somebody asked me that on an interview a while ago, and I was still in that when you're in that phase of just following breadcrumbs and trying to figure out what lights you up, that question is very overwhelming. So I guess what I'll ask you is what is lighting you up now? Like, what are you excited about? And maybe that is kind of part of the story of creating the journal and the app, which, by the way, complete side note, I was on the Soul Track website yesterday that you're doing like it's a beta launch, so it's not quite launched yet.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you're doing like the custom like sound affirmations. And it's hilarious because I just bootstrapped my own little visualization soundtrack the other day. It was 10 minutes of me recording like scripting like a present day, life vision over like 432, I think 432 hertz and like theta brain waves. And I like created it in
Yes.
GarageBand and I'm like listening to it.
You want
I'm
to come
like,
work for
I
us?
need
No.
this. Yeah, right. Me just like
We
ghetto,
can
like
make
putting
one
it
for you.
together.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's essentially, yeah, my soul track in a nutshell. But to, I guess, rewind, because there's so much. What is next part, or what is exciting me right now is I actually gave myself permission to not have to figure it out in this moment.
Love that.
That is like such a privilege, and such a like, I'm like, thank you, past self, for working so effing hard that I can take a breath right now. I can go, you know what, for the next few months, I don't have to know what my strategy is and how, you know, what my branding's going to be and all those things. So I actually I just maybe, gosh, right before we scheduled this a few weeks ago, I had been sitting with that uncertainty of like, do I want to keep pushing? Do I want to keep scaling? Do I want to do this or that? And for me, anytime the conversation in my head gets very like, and there's this, for me, that's not the space from which I want to make decisions. So I was like, okay, how can I create spaciousness right now? Because I'm making a decision based on my fears and my anxieties at the moment. So I emailed my manager and I said, hey, think for the next, you know, 2, maybe 3 months, I'm going to step back for a little bit. I'm going to live in Bali. I'm going to go around and do some other things. But my main focus is not going to be on the business. It's not going to be on scaling. And I feel bad. My income's obviously tied to multiple other people's income and stuff. So I was like, if I need to, do you need to drop me as a creator? Like, I understand. I wrote this super long email.
And she's like, no.
She's like, that's okay. But I really was like, I want to give myself full permission. I don't want to feel guilty for taking this time. And one thing I have like on my phone literally is just, it says a certainty that everything is good. So this is good.
Yes. Oh, that's like a David. Yeah.
Yeah, David Guillaume from Kabbalah, whose work I just discovered not too long ago. But yeah, just certainty that everything is good. So what is next is, I have no idea, but it's going to be good. And yeah, I'm just trying to create the space where the nudges can find me. And part of that journey has been starting other little ventures and things that maybe don't make sense, or maybe
It makes
do,
sense to
but
me. Yeah.
yeah, so one of those was creating with two other co-founders and friends is my soul track, and they're like, custom affirmation tracks that people can come on, talk about what they're going through, talk about their biggest challenges and their goals and the person they want to become, and actually have affirmations that come out and are generated exactly for their journey over this beautiful soundtrack and tuned to 432. It has theta waves, which, as you know, help your brain get way more into a receptive state for subconscious reprogramming. It's a really cool project. I'm really excited about it. It's just a little side thing, but yeah, we're all really passionate about healing and learning. And as I'm saying this, I'm like, you know what? I haven't been listening to my soul track, and I should probably make one for this period of my life because what the heck am I doing? Yeah, like this is exactly what it's made for.
Yeah, exactly. And I got full body chills when you said you don't know what's next, but you know it's going to be good. I was literally in that state for 6 months, maybe a little bit longer, of like I did the exact same thing. I
It
stopped
feels
all
like
ads,
forever.
stopped selling, stopped everything. I let go of most of my team. It was terrifying, and it was like also an ego death for me because as I shared before, it was like so much of my identity was tied to my business. And it's such like a sacred time, and also it takes so much strength to be like, I actually don't know. To just admit like I don't have all the answers right now, but just like live in joy, live in presence, and do things that make you happy, and be in Bali, like the most expansive, beautiful place ever. And like the answers are going to come. And yeah, no doubt what's next is going to be beautiful.
I so agree. I think it's the most naked that I've felt in a long time because maybe it's the comparison coming in, maybe it's I don't know, but it seems like there's so many coaches online or so many people online who are telling you like this is how to do this, this is how to do this. And there's a sense of, oh, all these people are following me. I have a responsibility to help them on their journey is I guess how I feel. And then I'm actually going, you guys, I like really don't know.
I've
And then
lost
it
the
creates this
plot.
funny, I've lost the plot a little bit. And it creates this funny feeling in me then of, selling a journal, a mindfulness journal, selling soul trackers. And like, oh, do people, they're like, oh, well, why is she selling it? She can't even figure it out. And I'm more like, you guys, I make these things because I need them. It's not for you. I need to journal every day. I have my journal right over there. I journaled like
And I just figured I'd make more. So
I
just,
just make
so
more.
yeah.
I needed a soul track. I figured I'd make more. And I think that's like really entrepreneurship at its core is like they say it's just you scratching your own itch and figuring out a elegant solution to your own problems.
Yeah, exactly. And, I'm sure you found this with just sharing about like the phase that you're in right now. This is the relatable stuff, you know? Like you are an aspirational person. I'm an aspirational person in many ways, but the true connection and like value that you can give your audience is when you're like, you know what? I don't know what I'm doing right now.
And I think that's where like I don't know, like the beauty and the juice of life comes in. And the like you said, the realness, whether that's online or in person. My ultra favorite conversations this week, I'm living in a house with four other creators who are insanely talented, who run podcasts, who have more than 1 million followers on YouTube, who are all multimillionaires, who all the things, very successful. And the best, conversations are all of us sitting around the dinner table and being like, this is what I'm going through. And this is kind of, and then being like, oh, cool. Like, and not from like a dumpy place, but just being like super real that like, yes, you are successful and you're amazing and you're whole and you're also healing and you're also figuring it out. And there's so much more that I find I learn from people when they share those aspects of themselves of like rather than just like here are the top 3 tips of like how to make $1 million in a month.
Right, exactly. Exactly. It's like the success is it is important, it is interesting, but it's also in some ways like the least interesting part about somebody, Like I want to hear about your soul's path. your and how you're trying to become a better person and contribute more broadly to the world and what you're struggling with and how vulnerable you can be in receiving help, and that really is the beauty of life. And I selfishly have a question for you that I'm sure the audience will relate to, which is you are such an expander for me and for so many people listening as somebody that just lives in true embodiment of your values of just living fully, having every experience, giving yourself permission to live life in like the exact way that you want to, regardless of, society's expectations. Have you ever fought with yourself on that? Because personally, for me, I feel like I went through this whole thing of like, surely at some age, I'm going to be like ready to do the societal normal thing of like settling down in a house. Like, surely. Now I'm like 32, which is obviously young, but I'm like, it's not going anywhere. It's not going anywhere. So how have you like fought with that in your head? Have you just accepted this is who I am, this is the lifestyle I want to live, or did you ever try to like contort yourself?
I love this question. There is something in me that I say thank you for every single day that will not allow myself to be contained. I can do it for tiny bits of time, but I just, I don't know. I am sometimes a shy person. Sometimes, like, I'm always a polite person. I always want to be a kind person, but I have to be free in who I am and in my expression. And freedom is my highest value. I would say that, yeah, there are micro moments where I do want to contort myself, or I think, oh, this is like really silly. I'm this age and I am frolicking around, or I am, not doing what is expected of me, or I'm not achieving the things, or whatever it is. I think I just have this like childlike joy for the world. And I do worry sometimes, like, oh, is this silly? Do people think I'm this or that, or I should be more elegant, or I should be more this? And then there's just that little fire in me that's like, nope, you love how blue the sky is and you are going to be really excited about it. And I don't know, the more I've also been in touch with my feminine side more than my masculine side, the more that I just feel everything. And I don't know, I'll cry when I'm surprised or I see horses or whatever. And I just really see the beauty now in the fullness of like how much I enjoy life. And I guess I feel very blessed to also have friends and family who don't belittle me for that, who really also be like, wow, you actually help me see more joy in the world, or have more excitement, or have more childlike wonder and awe because you do. So,
That's so beautiful. Yeah, and it does help also to surround yourself with people that think the same way as you. I'm the same where I'm like, if I always joke that if I'm outside of like a small emotional range, I'm crying. Like if the sky's like a little bit too pretty, I'm crying. And if I'm like a little sad, I'm crying. And it is such a gift to just like be able to experience life and feel life so deeply and like look at a leaf and be like, wow, that leaf is just so beautiful, the way the light's coming off, and wanting to have that like that curiosity for the world. It's such a blessing, and I think sometimes I'm like, is the dream that we've been sold, is it overrated? Maybe, I don't know. And in romantic relationships, what does that look like for you? That's my limiting belief. Because I posted on Close Friends about this, I think, where I was like, I think I need to find somebody that enjoys traveling and freedom and spontaneity as much as I do. Otherwise, I think it creates a lot of resentment.
it does. So it's you like you're curious about how that freedom of expression shows up specifically in.
Yeah, like have you ever had a limiting belief of like the type of person that you needed to be with and not maybe being able to find somebody that loved travel as much as you? Or have you kind of decided like I need to be with this type of person?
Mm, yeah, I definitely went through a phase actually last year where
Went through a phase last year.
I I was single and I was very happy. I was like, I'm fine, but there was definitely a limiting belief around. I was like, I got to the point where I remember I was sitting there one day. I was like, I just don't think the partner I want to have exists, or that maybe that person won't want me. That was another part of it. I was like, maybe they exist, but they're not going to want me. Or I don't know. I went down this whole rabbit hole. And actually, that was initially what my soul track was about, finding a partner who was grounded yet adventurous, who was, going to expand my joy, and just all these things that I wanted to call in, like someone that was like a really strong masculine presence. So I had that belief, and I'm a little bit private about this relationship
Yeah,
that
it's
I'm
okay.
in now,
Yeah.
but I it was really funny. So my partner now, we were actually friends first, and it was like to him and another friend that I was like having this like crying, breaking down moment of like,
I'm never gonna find.
nobody's gonna want, I'm never
And he's
gonna
like,
find love.
me.
And no, but it
I'm just
wasn't
kidding.
him at the time. It
Oh,
wasn't him
okay,
at the
yeah.
time. Like, but we both met each other and said, wow, this is cool. You embody the type of person that I think I would want to be with. And it wasn't this initial, like, oh my God, love at first sight. Like,
Those
I
are bad, I
feel
find.
so, yeah,
Or it's a
yeah.
karmic lesson.
Or it's a karmic lesson. Yeah. So this was such a different way of entering relationship. And it really did start as just first him being an expander for me of being like, oh, men like you exist who are have such high values, who stand by their word, who are really mission driven, but also emotionally intelligent, and also can be silly, and also can be athletic, and like the layers just kept like, I was like, wow, okay, this is cool that this exists because now I know I had proof. Yeah, I have a lived example, and I have that with everything, even just with some women in my life. Like, oh, they're doing this thing. Oh, it's proof that it exists, and I love that. So at first it was just proof, and then months and months later, through many more shared experiences, we both kind of realized, like, oh, wow, this actually, we live on opposite sides of the world and all this is, but like, we could actually maybe give this a try and make this a thing because it's really, really special to have that weird puzzle piece of someone that fits into, like you were saying, you're like, I want someone that travels and does all these things. And yeah, so had the limiting belief, then subsequently had the limiting belief sort of kicked out of me.
That's so good. I oftentimes find too that like the best relationships do start as friendships because you really get to know somebody's character and who somebody like very authentically is, and then decide like, is this something we want to try or not, versus the very like, I don't feel like dating just has like strange parameters and so much pressure of like, are you the person? And people can lead a certain way. And that's really beautiful. It's honestly, I'm doing my little visualization every night. So let's, I know he's out there. It's a weird feeling that I have. I know he's out there. I feel it, And I'm just like gonna keep, living in my joy and hopefully one day run into him on the street.
Yes, absolutely just never know. Mine was at a paddle game and like out of randomness. But yeah, just the idea of being your fullest self in a relationship, and that can also be a trigger or challenge sometimes if you want
Yeah,
to talk
no,
about
let's
that.
talk about that. Yeah, for sure.
But actually tying back to what you brought up earlier as far as like being someone who lives in their fullest self and expression and authenticity, I think that's been a really interesting joy and also trigger to bring up in relationship because at this point I am so like clear in who I am and how I move through the world. Obviously we come into relationship and we all have our own ideas and projections, and it's been super interesting to really be like grounded in who I am and be like, hey, this is how I move through the world. And do we both agree on accepting one another and really loving one another for who that person is? Like, my partner and I had such a deep talk about this yesterday of like, hey, I really need to feel understood and celebrated in who I am. Like that's such a deep need for me as a manifester. I can be quite like a disruptive force in life, and my need for freedom is like super big. And I was like, can you like hold me in that? Can you actually not just like hold it, can you love that part of me? And I think this relationship is the first time that those conversations or those questions are being asked with so much curiosity and so much frankness. And I think the more I've done inner work, he's done a lot of deep introspection as well, just, over the course of his life. You're able to come together at such a more honest and interesting level because you really understand parts of yourself, the good parts, the shadowy parts. and we're able to really come together and have beautiful conversations about these things.
Oh my gosh, I don't even know where to start with what you said. It's so good. It's the biggest lesson that I learned in my last relationship is the importance of presenting yourself honestly, because I've been very, very single for the last 9 months, which has been the first real time of being truly single of my life. And I have grown so much, where to my core, I'm like, in my next relationship, I'm going to represent myself very honestly in terms of what I need, and exactly what you were saying. But in the last relationship, I'd worked a lot on myself, but I was still insecure. So I was still shape shifting a bit to be kind of more of what he needed, right? Like, oh, maybe my love for freedom doesn't matter as much, you know? And a lot of people do that, where they contort themselves and present themselves in order to get validation or get the love that they're after, get that comfort, get that false sense of safety, which ultimately it is a false sense of safety, because at some point your real self is going to come forward. But it's so beautiful and like expansive for me to hear that, because it is a limiting belief that I've struggled with in terms of like, I want a partner that like loves that part of me, that wants to go to India for 2 weeks or even wants to do that with me, and is willing to have those conversations and those check-ins and those deeper conversations. And it's super expansive to hear that.
Yeah, it's been very, very fun. Very, very fun to have.
You're an example for me. You're proof for me.
True. But it also brings up so many triggers. So I don't want to
Yeah.
say that it's
Yeah,
easy.
no one's perfect.
We we both are like, I'm very dysregulated right now. And
Oh, you're like that. You're like that therapy couple now speaking. It's so funny.
like, I need to take some deep breaths.
Yeah, I need to go regulate. I'll be back in 10 minutes. Okay, I feel like I would be remiss to not end this episode with a question about creativity. Obviously, you are an inherently creative person. I could imagine that you don't always feel creative. How do you get yourself back into a creative flow when you feel like you're disconnected from it? And what do you notice takes you out of it?
So much of my creativity comes from two sources. One is nature. There is just something about it that absolutely pulls me from my heart to want to capture it, to want to think about it, to want to look at it. And nature is, I just think, such a force in my life and in my creativity. And the second thing is deep conversations with people I love. I find so much, I don't know, just juice in them that makes me think a different way. And I learn so much that for me, the whole process of, I guess, creativity is really collecting all these threads of experiences, of things I notice, of conversations I have, and putting them in a way, transmuting them in a way that maybe someone else can understand as well or learn from it as well. That for me is the creative process, is both in the gathering and in the, I don't know, whatever happens in here or in here. It has very little to, for me, to do with color grading or making a reel or whatever that is. That's kind of like maybe an output, but yeah, I'd say nature, conversations, lived experiences are the fuel for my creative fire. And without those things, I don't find I have a lot to talk about, a lot to give, a lot to share. And so that's where my art comes from. It's from what I feel and from what moves me in the world.
Thank you so much. You're such a beautiful soul. This was such a good conversation. I feel like people are going to get a lot out of it, whether it's like dating or giving themselves grace to move through chapters. I feel like is the biggest thing I'm taking away from you sharing your experience. Where can people find you on Instagram? Where can they find your journal, the app? And I'll be finding your app afterwards so I can get a real like professional situation.
Yes, we have to get you set up. So you can come find me. I'm at Chelsea Kauai, which is Chelsea Kauai. And we have Notes to Mindfulness, which is my journal. We have 4 different colorways. They're filled with prompts around mindfulness, creativity, fulfillment, emotional regulation. So all of the tools that I dearly love. It's on Amazon, it's on bookstores. You can just Google Notes to Mindfulness. And then my soul track is online at mysoultrack.com and also linked in my bio. And I would love to make you a soul track and to get that over for you and just just see what it would bring into your life. Maybe we can manifest you your dream man too.
I know. I'm manifesting that in a year or two, we like cut from me being like, my man's coming to me having the man. That's the manifestation from this magical conversation that we just had. Thank you so much, Chelsea.
Aw, thank you, Christina. And I have to say, I've also loved your work. It's been a permission slip for me to also pivot and to be really honest about who I am being in the world. And I save so much of your stuff all the time now where I'm like, actually, oh, this is so cool. Yes, I think about this too. And I just really admire the consistency and I admire anyone's willingness to pivot publicly, which I think is really, really scary, even if it's just a little bit.
Oof, yeah, it's an underrated, scary thing for sure.
Yes. So thank you, and thank you for having me.
Of course, thank you.